am Shaggy. I am Philolitea. It is Tuesday, and I am here. I am here. So, we were talking yesterday about effectively putting one's nose to the grindstone, right? We were talking, we keep talking because dudes tend to need that reminder of why they're working. And so, yesterday I was asked what my religion is. If I'm a religious person and I'm a monastic, what is my religion? Well, my religion doesn't have a name. It doesn't have a name that you can easily Google, and that you can find a clear list of tenets, right? And that you can find other observers, practitioners. It doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. Now it used to exist, not those academic things, but the practitioners used to exist, and they are our Proto-Indo-European ancestors from 5,000 years ago, and coded within our languages, our Indo-European language family, coded within the languages of the European language family, is that religion. And so the way you can find that religion is by studying the Indo-European family, by studying the Proto-Indo-European family, or by listening to me talk, because everything I say is an exploration of my religious beliefs, my religious system of that language. I'm always trying to tease out what those people believed, because that's ongoing scholarship and ongoing research. What the Proto-Indo-European people believed, how they lived. It's ongoing research. And so I research it for myself. I look for it for myself, but I also try to approach it in a different way. So I'm a lived experiential mystic, right? And so you've heard of existentialism, and that's not far off, because what the existentialists were doing philosophically was reaching back to that Proto-Indo-European. They were trying to find something that the Indo-Europeans of Europe all shared in common. And what the existentialists found is that, well, what all human beings share in common, whether they're among the Semitic language families, other language families, Indo-European language families, no matter what language family they speak, what all people share in common is existence. The 19 of you here with me now, what you share in common with me, what the 20 of us share in common, is that we all exist. Hello, MTY. And so the Proto-Indo-European religion begins at a word that sounds like ennui. Okay, this word ngui. I believe it's basically spelled Nguui. It sounds kind of like ngui. Okay, so it's got this negation in at the beginning, which sounds very much like the Nigerian languages. I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about if you follow sports. People with that NG name at the beginning. I'm doing great, Tanu. I'm in Ohio. It's okay, Mate. That's great to hear. I'm very glad to learn those things. Um, I'm glad to hear that, Tanisha. Um, that ngui sound, that sounds kind of like ennui in French, meant nothing. It meant nothing. And the thing is, words to the Proto-Indo-European people, and you're familiar with this concept. You just don't know that you're familiar with it. I'm in Ohio. Um, you don't know that you're familiar with this concept, um, because Christianity has done its best. It's done its absolute best to make this concept incomprehensible. Because what organized religions have to do is they have to abstract the existential parts of the religion out of the reach of the ordinary person, so the ordinary person will go to the professionals. Hey, Chill. Chill says that he missed my stream last night playing Final Fantasy. I had a really good time. We played Final Fantasy 2, which is one of my very favorite games of all time. And that leads me into today's subject of you get better at what you do. I am actually going to talk about what Final Fantasy 2 has taught me as an adult eventually. Um, but we're going to get there through the nothing because the ennui, the ennui, right? If you know what ennui is, it's the feeling like nothing matters, right? It's a kind of existential boredom. It's that waking up and going, here we go again, right? And so a lot of men come to me. A lot of men show up on my channel, especially young men, and they need to be reminded why we're grinding, why we wake up, and why our noses go immediately to the grindstone. And a lot of men have come to the conclusion that we do it for women, that we do it because women can't, because women cost the money that the grindstone provides us, uh, that their mothers need it, their sisters will benefit. A lot of men come to the conclusion that they're doing it for women, and that's fine. But that's not enough for me. This is the problem that I run into with a lot of my spiritual but not religious friends, and 100% of my religious friends is that their answers to existence's questions, frankly, just aren't good enough for me. It's not that they're, I don't know what it is. It's just me. It's just how I am. They're just not good enough for me. And so I have to keep looking. And so that brought me back to my Indo-European ancestors, because Christianity and Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, and then the religions of the Mediterranean, which came before Judaism, so the Philistine and broadly Canaanite religions, that is, the same religion that got itself into religious war with Rome during the Punic Wars in Carthage, because you may or may not know, but Carthage, we recently found, we really, let me try this again. Humans, we humans recently published good data on the DNA of the native Carthaginians. And what we found is that the city was settled by a group of um, Canaanites. The city of Carthage, North Africa, was settled by a group of Canaanites, but quickly intermarried and interbred with native Africans. So genetically, they were native North Africans, but culturally, religiously, and linguistically, they were Canaanite. And so that's confusing. That's confusing if you don't have the DNA. So the last hundred, fuck, the last when was Carthage destroyed? The Punic Wars were something like 100 BC, something like that, maybe 200 BC. Um, Rome came into power because of the Punic Wars, and I think they were before Julius Caesar, and I'm pretty sure that Julius Caesar did his stuff circa 63 BC. So sometime before that is when the Punic Wars were, and they were a war of religion over Carthaginian child sacrifice. And so if you've ever read your Bible, or you're familiar with anybody who follows an Abrahamic faith, and you've ever asked the question, well, why Abraham? Why that name? Well, what that guy does is make child sacrifice passe among Semitic speaking people who identify as Jewish with the Torah. But the Torah can be dated to around the same time as the Punic Wars. Can be. I don't know if a lot of people are doing that, but it can be dated to around the 3rd century BCE. It's not as ancient as the prophetic material. The prophetic material is deeply ancient. Some of it might actually go back into the Stone Age before the late, I'm sorry, the Bronze Age before the late Bronze Age collapse. Some of it might actually date back as far as the 13th century BC. Nobody wants to date it before the 8th century BCE because nobody wants to date Homer as young, but also Homer was definitely not one person, and modern scholarship just cannot get over the idea that he wasn't just one person. So modern scholarship doesn't want to step on its own toes, and then it uses the excuse, well, we don't want to step on Jewish people's toes, like Jewish people are backward. And so scholarship, academia has a real problem. superiority behaviors. But they wake up and they put their nose to an impossible grindstone, right? So I talked about the last, when I asked the question, when was the Punic War? So the last, let's say, 2,200 years of scholarship about the Punic Wars or about the Carthaginian people in the Latin languages, which we have inherited, has been um, confused because they didn't have the DNA. They didn't have the DNA, so they didn't know. They didn't know where these people came from. They didn't know where their ideas or their language or why they looked the way they did, but spoke a language from so far away. They didn't know. Well, we do now. We do now, and what I'm telling you is that rejecting Canaanite religion, the older Stone Age religion that managed to get grandfathered through the Bronze Age and the late Bronze Age collapse because of its relative isolation before they began to colonize because of the late Bronze Age collapse, was able to maintain, this people, these Canaanite people were able to maintain an older religion after the religious wars and the religious catastrophes of the late Bronze Age collapse, dated circa 1177 BCE, circa. That whole 1200s BCE was a period of collapse across the Mediterranean and globally, actually. Um, we don't like to talk about it because we have very little evidence, but something that I've noticed is every time there's a civilization-wide collapse, it actually does have global effects that hop across to North and South America. They're ripples and they're minor, but there are effects that can be tracked and should be studied. And if they were being studied, the alternative history crowd like Graham Hancock, whom you have to read if you care about this, the alternative crowd would have nothing to say, because then we would actually be putting money into their pet projects, and we would be exploring them without them, and they wouldn't be given access because they didn't put money into their pet project. And then we could just move on as an academic people. Fuck. We could just move on as an intelligent people instead of doing intelligent things, instead of working in academe or working on history and these impossible problems that you have to put your nose to the grindstone for your entire life. And you just have to know we're going to make no progress, right? Then we could get young people doing that instead of working on Wall Street. And then we could make some progress. Then we could make some progress towards sustainable civilizations. But anyway, why did these people wake up and go to their lives? Because, like, think about your life. Think about what you wake up and go about. It's taking a shower under hot running water, into terry cloth, in a heated, treated room that's moisture wicking on its own, moisture absorbing on its own. From there, you go to pre-made breakfasts that you only have to open a plastic or a paper wrapper to get access to and then shove into your face. Then you get into a car that does all of your horsepower for you, so that all you have to do is put a little bit of weight on your foot onto a pedal, a series of pedals, and you get where you're going with a modicum of attention paid. You arrive at your job, and for the most part what you do is data entry. You just sit and enter numbers into a computer. Or what you're supposed to be doing is smiling at human beings and helping them get their lunch, or buy their clothes, or solve their problems with your parent corporation. And then you come home and you play video games and you watch TV that's pre-made for you right in your home. And then you go to sleep, and then you wake up and you say, "Oh, I'm so bored. Ennui, ennui. There's nothing new under the sun." And good on you. That's why I'm here. Couldn't take it anymore. Couldn't fucking take it anymore. Couldn't take your ennui anymore. I work customer service and retail, hospitality. Then I just couldn't take your ennui anymore. I couldn't take the babies crying for attention, crying for a solution to a problem that they can't articulate. So my religion, if it had a name, is the word, and it's combating the ennui, it's combating the ennui, it's combating the nothing. It's doing something about the nothing. And in fact, I have a podcast series that I call that When the Nothing Gets on Me and I Just Need to Despair, I read a book that's above my intellectual level. Have done that since kindergarten, and it works for me. But that's also when people ask me, well, what's your religion and how did you arrive at it? That's how I arrived at it. That's how I arrived at it, because studying the Indo-European language family is how I arrived at finding the words that they found important. And so you understand this concept of words being religious, words being more than a concept, words being more than a god, words being reality, thing that makes reality real. Because you've met a Christian, you've heard the phrase, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. You've heard that before. I don't believe you if you try to say that you haven't. You might not have access to the memory because you don't form permanent memories of every single thing you heard, because you're not an audio listener like I am. But you've heard it because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Because it's the truth. It's the truth that underlies the Christian message, but it's the truth that underlies the Indo-European language system. And it's the truth that has influenced every single religion and thought system that the Indo-European language family has come into contact with. And I don't know if you know this, but that's every single one. Because English is an Indo-European language, French is an Indo-European language, and Spanish is an Indo-European language. Italian and Latin are as well. But I don't know if you know this, but the Spanish, French, and English languages conquered the entire planet come the advent of the 19th century. So everything is affected, infected, if you want to talk about intellectual contagion, with combating the nothing, doing something about that feeling of nothing. And so the reason we wake up and we put our noses to the grindstone is because to do nothing is worse than death. It's worse than death. Do nothing. And then do it tomorrow. And then do it the next day. And tell me that ennui doesn't strike. I know. I spent 4 years forced to do nothing. If I did anything besides nothing, I was punished with just unbelievable abuse, including being punched in the face. So don't start with me about exaggeration. I fought it. I fought it as hard as I can. I have a whole Patreon. Page to prove how hard I fought it for those 4 years. I posted everything. I had a blog. I posted everything that I wrote in that 4-year span on my Patreon, and you can find all of it. If you really want to know, well, how did he come to this place where he can be positive about living in a tent, sleeping naked in the cold, wrapping himself up in sleeping bags, and cleaning himself with disposable washcloths, how can he come to a place where he's content with that, and more than content, that he's happy, and not just happy, but glad to share it for free with the hands of people who know they should be paying? That's not guilt. I'm a cynic, and I speak the truth. So I don't call things what they aren't for political correctness. I don't give a fuck about your politics. I care about your soul. And lies erode the soul. Even small lies. Because small lies, like grains of sand blasting against a rock face, still do damage. 10,000 years of one grain a day, and you will have a divot. You will have a divot. In Ohio, there's this place called Yellowstone. It's basically a nature reserve and it's a place for middle and upper class people to go and hike. What's his name? The comedian, the shitbag. Um, Dave Chappelle lives there and preys upon underage teenagers sexually. And nobody knows about it because nobody talks about it because everybody in Yellowstone knows about it and talks about it. I've dated a couple of girls from Yellowstone, and that's all they talked about was how annoyed they are and how they date outside of Yellowstone because all of their friends have fucked Dave Chappelle before they were 16. So moving on from that, there's a there's an area that you can go to where this rock face was carved out by the wind in such a way that you have a basically triangular rock that's hollow through the middle because the wind blasted it long enough that it just carved its way through that rock, and you can walk through that hollow space and feel the wind as it continues its work, knowing that someday it's going to take that whole face with it. And that's why we grind. Because eventually the grind will take our whole face with it. And there will be nothing left of us, and it will be over. And that will be good. So how are you guys doing today? The people who were watching knew that that was the end, so they all bailed at the same time. So nihilist but positivist. It all resolves to nothing at the end. But this isn't the end. And that's why Christianity and I just can't jive. Because this is objectively not the end. And giving into that fatalism, it's just not in my language. So in the 90s we used to say, well, that goes against my religion. Fatalism is just against my religion. And so these Christians who want to come at me with this fatalism, well, that's just the way things are and there's nothing we can do about it. Fuck you. You've got $1 you don't need right now. Fuck you. This whole adopting the powerlessness of the elites during the 14th century plagues is unacceptable to me. First of all, you are not a noble. Second, it is not the 14th century and you are not powerless in the face of a plague. Plague of what? You weren't even powerless in the face of COVID. But the whole, oh, I have to wear a mask is about affecting powerlessness. Oh, I can't breathe. I can't breathe with this thing on. All right, then don't be out in public for so fucking long. Or maybe don't be 400 pounds. Maybe have been prepared for your life to be in danger and you won't feel like you're dying. Anxiety is the feeling like you're going to die because you haven't studied for the test that you're taking. Study for the test. And it's fucking hard. It's not like the public education system isn't doing its very best to give you the answers. But we're all going to go, oh, Fauci tried to get us all killed. Of course he did. Of course he did. You know the best way to make sure that during an election year, you know the best way to make sure that poor people don't vote for Joe Biden? Kill them all. That's the best way to make sure that poor people don't vote for Joe Biden during an election year. You really think those parties were going to let that crisis go to waste? Hell no. Hell no. We got to get rid of the Democratic voter base any way possible. Oh, there's a plague? Yeah, let that shit run rampant. I wish I were joking. But we're 5 years removed and you're an adult. If you're not an adult, why the fuck are you watching my material for this long? Uh, Maddie, I don't know why you wouldn't be allowed to sub. And so what Final Fantasy II teaches us, Chill Magai, reminds me to talk about something that you can find on my channel that I've already talked about. Final Fantasy II, we played that for 2 or 3 hours last night. And what Final Fantasy II, I believe, teaches us is that the design philosophy of you get better at what you do is not obvious to everyone. Because sometimes when I want to feel superior to other human beings, I just want to feel superior in all ways. I just log into Reddit. I just open the Reddit app. And I instantly feel superior to everyone else who has ever opened the Reddit app. But then when I want to feel intellectually superior to people, I go to Reddit and I read what people have to say about Final Fantasy II. Because they're all so goddamn dumb. Like yesterday, I talked about this on the live yesterday, last night, but like yesterday before, and part of why I decided to switch definitely from Final Fantasy 1 to Final Fantasy 2, having beaten Final Fantasy 1 for a second time on live, was because I'm watching this short about a guy talking about the progression system in Final Fantasy 2, and the way he introduces it is he says, your spells can get seriously underpowered, and then the way he suggests that you get them powered is if you don't use them. And it's like, no shit, Sherlock. No shit. You have fire 2. And you're in the 7th dungeon of the game with stuff that's hitting you with fire 8. No shit, if you didn't use your fire spell before that, your fire spell ain't gonna be worth the damn to you. No shit. But this isn't obvious to people. It's not obvious to people. And I don't know how. Because it's obvious to people that if you get in, and this might be how, if you get into random encounters in Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy the First, you gain experience, and that experience levels you up. And people don't understand that, well, you gain experience, you just don't see a total in Final Fantasy II every time you swing a weapon or cast a spell. And it compounds the longer the fight is. So the longer you manufacture fights to be, the more experience you get per fight. Right. Right. It's like as I flip through social media, something that I've noticed is that Europeans aren't fat. So when European girls become fitness models, they dramatically underestimate the actual amount of fitness that you need to be in order to be a fitness model. Even girls who are former gymnasts, dancers, acrobats, whatever, cheerleaders, whatever they were as children, dramatically underestimate what professionals are putting their bodies through for their audience. And then American girls are fat, even the American girls who appear skinny are skinny fat. So when they become fitness girls, it's actually really funny. When they become fitness, actually selling is the fitness journey, because they don't have to guess that they can't do the things that actual fitness models can do with their bodies. And so what you're actually paying is to experience her journey, which means you're paying her to be her father, but also to be her abusive stepfather. So it's so funny too, because like if you try to research ancient sex work, or and that includes ancient cult, if you try to research this stuff, the women who do the research, because men are smart enough to know better, the women who do the research have just no idea what the fuck is going on, because they have such feminist and highfalutin ideas that all forms of sex work, including modeling, nude or otherwise, are bad. They're just bad. And this returns us to yesterday when I said that this hierarchy of good bad, that thinking in terms of good bad, even thinking in terms of healthy unhealthy, that's a judgment of somebody else's life. And academics do it all the fucking time. Feminists, that's what their work is giving judgment of the past. It's hilarious to me. But that's what I had prepared for today. That's what I was thinking about before I turned this on. So we're at half an hour. I had no real plan today to do crowd work, but it's 1 o'clock and I have 37% battery. It is going to take every minute of the remaining 8 hours that Panera is open to charge my external battery. So, if you want this to be sustained, I really do kind of need to be um, incentivized by these in the morning. Do them A, earlier, and to B, park in Taco Bell for an hour or two to continue charging my shit so that we can get more and more hours of me in front of the camera. Thank you for those 6 likes. I haven't addressed them yet because I also need to condition you that I got to get this thought out before I can engage you. That it begins with me, and then I will open myself up to you once this part's empty. It's like butt sex, right? You want to take a shit first. So let me shit, and then I'll stay on the pot. I'm thankful every day, feminists out there, and you need to hear this. I'm grateful every day that I'm not a woman. The feminine social economy alone is a fucking nightmare of lies and transgression. But then the way that you women make your livings, your money, because of the way you like to spend money, is unthinkable to me. If I were a woman, all I would have to do to sell Patreon subs is say that I'm doing this, but the camera's up there and I'm fully nude. And I would have had a home. I became homeless at the end of September. I would have had a home before. I would have had a sustainable $1,000 of income because you wouldn't have listened to a word I'm saying. You haven't listened to a word I'm saying effectively. Those of you who are new, that's my point. You haven't. You haven't gone back and done the 10 months of diving into my life to connect the words together of what I'm saying. I'm not criticizing you. And you wouldn't have felt inclined to. Like the women who do the naked weather. You're not paying attention to the weather. You're glancing, getting the brief information that you came here to get, but you came to be titillated, literally. And I'm not judging you. We just have to talk about it open. We have to talk about it openly and honestly without using euphemism and without saying that there's a better or a worse way to live. Everybody likes titillation. Everybody needs chemical stimulation to get through the ennui. Everybody does. Everybody likes a beautiful naked human being. I mean, why do you think the Greeks wrestled and danced, just had their slaves posed naked? Like the living statue thing comes from rich people in the ancient world having beautiful people just pose naked. Why do you think they began making their statues beautiful and naked, modeled after real people? Like the Renaissance art, especially the artistic nudes, you have to remember that those were actual women. Those look exactly like actual women. That's what an actual nude model looked like back then. They didn't have photographs. And so those women didn't have photographs of other women to compare themselves to. If you're talking about like Florence, there might be three. There might be three professional nude models. So they're not worried about what other women look like. So like when we're talking about like the whole fitness model thing, the Europeans aren't worried about what other women in Europe look like, especially they're not worried about what American girls look like. American girls are fat, and all European girls are, they all have the same skinny body type because they all have the same diet and they all have the same activities. They all live the same culture. As far as these girls who have the temperament and the proclivity and the class uh, to the born into a class structure to come to the idea that they might want to become models. So they're not looking at one another and being insecure. They're looking at the professionals and being like, oh, I dramatically underestimated what was required of this job. Whereas in the US, the girls on TikTok, the girls doing OnlyFans, they're not looking at the professionals. They were consuming the work of the professionals before they got the idea that they could do that thing. But they got the idea that they could do that thing by watching girls on social media and thinking, oh well, I'm more attractive than her fat ass. And so I'm grateful every day I'm not a woman. Because I don't even know that men know they're supposed to compete anymore. I think that men have this idea that they're just supposed to pretend like they're an alpha. And so just dress like whatever guy you see and you perceive as successful. Like the perfectly groomed beard psychologist guy with the unnecessarily large torso and hilariously skinny legs that talks to Jordan Peterson all the time. Like you think that's masculinity. And that guy's one of the dumbest people alive. But you model yourself after him because he looks successful. He looks like he's winning in the way that you think you want to be winning. But if you look at the people who are actual sexual athletes, none of them have that hilarious and stupid looking gorilla body. None of them. They all have my body type. They all look like mountain climbers. If you actually look at the world's sexual athletes, if you actually look at them, most of them are under 5'8". But so are the world's bodybuilders. They're all tiny men. That's how they're able to get those bodies. So, like, when you see these dudes with their perfectly coiffed beard, and their perfectly coiffed hair, and their perfect glasses, and their eyeliner, and their blush, and their pink shirts, coming at you on this one, Madge, and their puffy titties, and their great big deltoids, and they can't quite get their hands together in order to scratch their nuts. You have to understand that what those guys are spending their time doing is jerking off all day long. What they're not doing is actually reading the books they tell you that they are. They're not reading them with a damn. What they're doing is reading the first and last sentence of every paragraph for the first 100 pages. And then they're telling you that they're more intellectually engaged than you are because as far as you get is jerking off all day. And I hear you. I do. Because I struggle with that. This isn't me denigrating you. Got the note in my head. I got nothing else to do. Let's take an hour and rub one out. What the fuck? Beautiful women are beautiful. What the fuck? Why not? And so why not? Why not? I get it if you don't want to stick around. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to talk about it. But we're going to talk about it. We're adults. We're adults. And if you're here listening to me, it's because you're wasting time. It's because you're wasting your time when you should be doing something important. That's why my channel is really about connecting with people who are at work right now, hitting that grindstone, busting their ass, so I can stand in solidarity with them and like, this is my version of that, because this is hard intellectual work. It's hard work to hold these thoughts together and to be relativistic and to not sound judgmental, not sound angry, and not to get angry, and not to get overstimulated. But like, there are certain things I can't take seriously. One of those things I can't take seriously is a man pretending to be an intellectual and a bodybuilder. You don't get to be both. You don't get to be both. I'm sorry. Have you ever actually listened to Von Miller talk? Have you ever actually listened to him talk? Did you watch Aaron Rodgers talk to Joe Rogan, pretending to be an intellectual? Have you ever actually done it? Have you ever actually sat and listened to these people with college degrees, pretending to use them? Because the only example of an intellectual they've ever actually been around, the only examples, there are two, are other posers, other people pretending and charging them a huge amount of money at that pretense, or their professors who aren't pretending but are charging them a huge amount of money. So people like Micah Parsons think that writing that letter on social media to his boss, they think that that's an actual intellectual letter. They think that that's actually how intellectuals behave, because they heard in college that intellectuals used to write letters, and that intellectuals write letters to their organizations when they want to make a change within the organization. And then his dumbass does it on Instagram because he's a dumbass. Because he's not actually an intellectual. Because he's not actually a professional intellectual. But then you got to understand. You have to understand that Jerry Jones, calling out Micah Parsons' injury history in an interview, in a press conference, it's also not the behavior of an intellectual. That's not the behavior of a professional either. That right there is the behavior of a doddering old man. And so what you have is a doddering old man and a young black man who thinks that he's a class higher than what he is. So what you have is two idiots being idiots in public. And I love it because it's evidence. It's evidence of what I'm talking about. You know how I would have handled this situation? If Jerry Jones wants to have a personal one-on-one interview with me and a dialogue with me, a dialogue with me, he wants to sit down and he wants to get my agent out of the way because he doesn't trust my agent. He wants to have a dialogue with me. I'd walk into his office and I'd tell him to get fucked, act like a professional. My agent is handling this, and if he's not, I don't work for this team anymore. I'll see you in 3 years when I'm with somebody else. That's how you handle that, like a professional and like an adult. You know how you handle your conflicts at work if you're an adult? By telling the person that you're in conflict with, I am in conflict with you and this isn't getting resolved until you resolve it. That's how. And if you're afraid to keep your job, you're so afraid to lose that wage that you're willing to allow somebody to mistreat you, and you're allowing resolution or irresolved conflict to follow you around in your life. You know what that's called? There's a word for that. There's a word for that. There's a word in English to describe people who allow people to mistreat them. I'm not allowed to use it, but we use another word today for that. A word with a long and storied history that I'm not allowed to use in public. Slave. You're a slave if you are willing to let conflict go unresolved without defending yourself. What you are is conquered. Stand up for yourself. You don't need that wage. Someone will feed you. And if you're ashamed to accept food, you're just not French enough. You're just not doing it right. If you think French nobility were spending money on food, you're wrong. They were getting that shit for free everywhere they could. Why do you think automobiles became popular? I once explored an essay plotting out the idea of civilization as a metaphorical dinner party. It's on my Patreon. You can find it. Search dinner party. Exploring this idea of civilization as a dinner party, and then I realized the only people who know anything about dinner parties and dinner etiquette are the kind of people who would follow that podcast by those brothers who used to do that D&D live stream, because their youngest brother was a huge fan of that D&D podcast Critical Hit. Or might have been Critical Role. Who knows? There's so many of them, and they all have critical in the name. Because they're all derivative. And they're all trash. I watched 350 episodes of that fucking Critical Hit. Not the one that got the TV show, the one that has the Latino DM. They had a big, like, internet, like, nerd culture podcast before they did their D&D thing. They were basically the Skeptic's Guide to the galaxy of nerd culture and podcasts. They were one of the very first. And they all work together, basically like that Secret Castle channel here on YouTube. They all work together, and then they would podcast from the store after work. And then they started doing the D&D thing, and the channel blew up. And I think his name was Rodrigo, was able to quit his job. He was able to quit working for the company directly to DM full-time the podcast. Anyway, I listened to the first 350 episodes of that. Basically long enough for the kid from... What were they called? It was three brothers and their dad. And the two brothers already had a podcast. And their youngest brother DM'd for them forever. They were super popular for a minute. Around 2017, 2018, something like that. Huge. Damn. Anyway, the second time he emailed in to thank Rodrigo for the inspiration, they plugged the family's podcast, and so I started listening to it from the beginning, because trying to catch up with more than 1,000 episodes of this podcast was seriously burning me out by 350. So I'm not asking you to watch all my stuff. I know you're going to burn out. Don't do that. That'd be dumb. You got your whole life. And because I'm still producing material, I'm going to circle back around to all of it for years and years and years. So just calm down on watching all my material, you know? It's there for somewhere to store it, guys. It's on my YouTube and on my Patreon for fucking archival purposes, because it's never going to be seen if it only exists in my notebooks or in my laptops or in my phone. You have to start publishing somewhere, somehow, sometime, or nobody's ever going to know you're doing it. No one's ever going to know that you're doing the work. And so that's what I'm talking about, right? If we're going to the grindstone, be proud of our jobs. If you don't like where you work, don't work there. Don't apply there. If you don't like the company, quit. If you don't like your boss, fucking tell him. If telling him doesn't change anything, tell his boss. If telling his boss doesn't change anything, fucking quit or transfer. It's the easiest shit in the world. It's just a fucking job. It's an income. And if you've taken it just for the income, it doesn't fucking matter what you're doing. It legitimately doesn't matter what the fuck you're doing if you're only there for the paycheck. Now give me a second. I am putting on music. And so if it doesn't matter what the fuck you're doing, the only thing that matters is how well you do it. So just do it to the best of your fucking ability. It's not that hard, right? God damn, I need to bathe, and it got warm all of a sudden. This is a confluence of unfortunate events for me right now. And I don't have anybody in the chat, so it's not like... I've actually seemed to have broken my chat. I can no longer see it. So, really what I should do is just end this for the day. Bathe, go up to the Panera, turn on Titan Quest, and continue. talking about the ennui, and I'm talking about the nothing, and I'm talking about doing something about it on some level, because today is just one of those days. Today's just one of those days where it's grinding on me, man. I kind of just... More than anything, I just kind of want to I really just wanted to sit in the tent while it was in the shade and enjoy my day that way. But that doesn't seem to be in the cards for me because it's gotten warm. See if I can balance you on the top of my tent without that becoming a disaster. If I can smell the perfume, I haven't worn it for so long that it's gone bad. This is how this works. You got to get this sweat off of your body. That's what stinks. Because see, the sweat isn't sweat. The sweat is also chemicals. The sweat is what's in your blood. It's what's in the water in your body. Your body, your cells, your body doesn't have this. It's not like camel isn't even like what you think. But your body doesn't have like water sitting around in your stomach or in your bladder that it then distributes to your cells. What happens is your blood, I guess. I'm not an expert in this. I'm trying to understand because it's necessary for me to know to keep myself hydrated and keep myself from dying. But basically your blood carries a certain amount, it carries a maximum amount of water. And then that water is distributed to your cells. And then your cells need a certain amount of water and they carry a maximum amount of water. And any more water than that and you'll start to die. And so sweat is just the skin cells moving that water out of themselves so that you create you when it evaporates it creates makes you cold in the wind. The wind carries away the evaporation and that lowers your external temperature to combat your internal temperature. But if you let that sweat sit there, it's got minerals and stuff in it as well. It's got whatever's in your blood in it. That's why alcoholics stink. If you've ever noticed that, and if you've ever been wondering, like, you suddenly stink when you sweat about somebody, it's because they're recently an alcoholic or because they're still drunk. When you drink a lot, it begins to smell. And look, this is like a real thing that I need to be doing. The dirt and particulate in the air clings to my skin because it's wet. And so you got to get this off of your body. First of all, dirt and particulate will cling to your cells and they won't allow oxygen to get to your cells and it'll kill them. And so what I'm doing isn't even about beautification. But if you don't get that sweat off your body, if you just let it sit on your body, that's what stink and body odor are. And if your underarms stink, it's because you're eating stinky foods. You're eating foods that make you stink. Onions will make you smell like onions because onions smell like chlorine. And while we're talking about it, did you know that the reason onions make you cry is because they release chlorine gas when you cut them? And that chlorine gas, if it gets in your eyes, mixes with the water in your eyes and becomes hydrochloric acid, and that's why they make you cry and that's why they burn, is because there's hydrochloric acid in your eyes? I did. You could have, especially if you're older than me. And that's encouraging you. That's not criticism. So many people, well, you could have, with anything, think it's a negative criticism. It's like, well, you could have. You're human. And I just choose and prefer to not hear negative criticisms. I don't like being naked on camera. This isn't about, oh damn it, this is the wrong towels. This isn't about showing my skinny, ugly body. This is about the truth. This is how I bathe. A lot of people come around and get at me like I'm dirty or like I'm less than. So, see it. I can't see your comments, so I haven't been getting them today. It's a Tuesday. I'm not expecting, I just really wasn't expecting the likes that I have gotten. I haven't been anticipating that a lot of people are going to want to sit around and hear a homeless guy philosophize about why we go to work, a guy without a job. In fact, from their perspective, is going to talk about why we go to work and why we work so hard at work when that work that we're doing doesn't necessarily directly benefit us, especially if we're talking about like a factory or assembly line. So like, something that I've noticed about the kids that make my food, whether at Panera or Taco Bell, even at Wendy's, I don't get to watch them make my food at Wendy's, but something that I've noticed about the kids is that they don't take pride in what they're doing. They're not proud of the fact that they're making food, or that they just made that sandwich and I'm eating it and I like it, right? Or that they made that taco. They made that taco and I'm there every day. And I must like their tacos if I'm there every day. I must like the way he makes that taco if I'm there every day. If when I walk in and I see that it's him on the dressing line, I don't say, well, I'll go somewhere else, right? I could get down to Wendy's in time for them to still be open. I don't do that. And so something that I've noticed is these kids, they don't take pride in their work. They don't take pride in what they've actually accomplished. They don't take pride in the fact that they just accomplished an 8-hour shift. They don't take pride in the fact that they just made that sandwich and that guy likes it. It's just interesting to me because that goes to speak to how they were raised and how much and for how long they got too much positive reinforcement for doing mundane things, that they think that they need to get that compliment. They need to get that person who steps out of their normal day to say, hey, you on dressing table, bamf mustard application, way to fucking go. Like they need that, somebody to jump out that far in their day. And it's like, you're just not trying that hard. You're not trying hard enough to get that. I used to get that all the time. Let's just be real. I used to get that all the fucking time. All the fucking time. I used to have people when I worked at UDF, United Dairy Farmers, making milkshakes and ice cream, but in particular my milkshakes. I used to have people get their milkshake. I wouldn't let them, I tried my best to not let people try it before they had paid, so they couldn't compliment me before they'd paid, so they wouldn't be inclined to tip me. But this guy, I can clearly remember one guy in particular giving me a shake. He steps outside and takes his first step, starts walking to his car, stops, turns around and opens that and goes, motherfucker, that is the best shake I've ever had. I used to have that all happen to me all the time. My first shift working days, it was a Sunday at Steak and Shake, so I was only 18. It was my first shift ever working days. I was only recently trained on shakes, and so they brought me in to work the shake station, and we were supposed to have 2 people, a person in dining and a person in drive-thru, but get out of my way, just let me do it. So the person who was on drive-thru wasn't there that day. I pushed off the station, they moved them around, so I was working both. And anyway, I can very clearly remember it was a chocolate malt. It was a chocolate malt, extra thick. Light syrup and the chocolate malt. I wanted it too chocolatey. And they wanted it super thick. So I made it and moved on with my life. And then about 5 minutes later, one of the servers comes up to my window and goes, hey, table 8, whatever, wants to talk to you. And I was trained on the dining room before I was trained on shakes. So I knew where she was talking about, so I just walk on out there, and I find them, and it's this old couple. They had to have been in their 70s. Just tiny little old couple.
The oldest people I'd ever talked to in my life, 18. And the dude tells me, he knows, we've been coming here since this store opened, however many years that was. He said something crazy like 40 years. I didn't believe the store was that old. But basically, what he meant is we've been drinking milkshakes together since the 1950s. Since that was a thing, since we were little together. He says, we've been drinking milkshakes, and this is the best milkshake we've ever shared together. And I just went, thank you, sir, and went about my life. Most people would be like, well, that needs to come with a $5 tip, right? Nah, I don't care. I like when these lives come with tips. Mr. S hit me with what, way too much money again. But it's not about that. It's not about the likes. It's about reaching into your life and helping you in some way. La da da da. I like to sing that song. It's Breakfast in America by Lady Tramp. I like to walk through the dining room in Panera. I just like to walk through anywhere where there are women who are 5 to just minimum 5 years older than me. Well, 5 years older than I am. I just like to walk by them and go ba da ba ba and see what they do. Because not only is that song an earworm, but they know what that song is about. Take a look at my girlfriend. And then with any luck, they've seen the 100 Most Awesomely Bad Time documentary that VH1 released. It wasn't really a documentary, it was just a where listicles were only on the internet. There was a time before Facebook ubiquity when listicles are just what that's just what the cable television was producing. So nothing is actually new. But VH1 used to make listicles, and they made 100 awesomely bad songs, like the bad songs of all time, and Breakfast in America was on it. The winner, if you want to know, was not, is it called I'm So Sexy? I've got another song in my head, so it's really hard for me to sing songs or think of the way that songs go when I've got another one playing in my ear. But the song about the dude, I'm too sexy for this shirt. I'm too sexy for this shirt. Or I've never heard the song. That song, on the catwalk, that song, that did not win. The song that actually won was Jefferson Starship's We Built This City on Rock and Roll. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. They're right. That might be the most awesomely bad song ever made. Considering the band. Jefferson Starship did not build this city. And they barely play rock and roll. Whee! Because they used to be Jefferson Airplane or something like that. Oh, I keep looking for my tripod. Where the fuck is my phone stand? Woo! Temperature for my phone is the temperature of molten lava. I don't know if it's going to rain today. So I shouldn't leave my chair assembled. That's what I'm saying. Mr. is going, don't leave your fucking chair assembled. I'm so fucking sick of hearing you bitch about that chair being full of water. He's not even here. He might hang around and watch these in the future. Oh, motherfucker. Okay. It's done. God damn, it's hot out here today. I should have left an hour ago. I should have woken up 2 hours before what I did. Did you know that this guy thinks that the owner of a lonely heart is much better than the owner of a broken heart? What do you think about that? Would you rather have your heart broken? I can't see the chat, so I mean, I don't even know if you can see me. You can't. Whew, phone is hot. Why can't I find my sweater? My hoodie seems to have gone wall. I would have preferred that weren't there, but that's good. Smells bad in there. Okay. Okay. Now we got Boston. Okay. It's too hot for this today, but here we go. Actually. Woo! My phone is hot. Ah! That's all as you get of this. I think it's Boston. You have to guess what it is from that one note. Ah! It's not even the right note. Good luck. If you guess it, there's no prize. I'll give you kudos. I am right about it being Boston. All right. You ready to walk to what I consider work with me? See if I put you up here, if this will work. No, because I have to do something before I do that. I can't walk to this music. All right. Sorry that I'm less sorry about that, what you probably want. But there we go. I'm going to put you right here on my neck as we hang from the vibe. And maybe I'll sing you a little Mastodon as we walk to work. Because that's what I do every day. So if it gets loud for you, I'm not sorry. If you can't see very well, I'm also not sorry about that. I've done my best. The dark black sea. Ba-da-da-bow-bow-bow. Ouch. Concentrating on avoiding these damn thorns. And then up my little deer path that is an actual deer path. I just tunked down an actual deer path. There's another one over yonder that you can just barely see. And then I don't know if you can see the camera, but there's one over there too. You disappeared into the stream, but I waited so long. I waited so long, no one can hold me. And I waited so long. I'm dipped in the deep, dark rain, and a haze in my voice, sinking with all my teeth. The bite in the storm with the great green bow. and I'm railed in my nerve. I'm sure to make them meet. You disappeared into the stream. You disappeared into the stream. Yep. That's very high for my voice. 'Cause I waited so long, no one can hold me. And I waited so long, no one can hold me. And I waited so long. That's high for a warm-up. Because he wants to sit right at the top of his fucking head voice without going up into his falsetto. And so I crack on it every time in the morning. Time has caught up with me, taking all my energy. Time has caught up with me, taking all my energy. 'Cause I waited so long, no one can hold me. And I waited so long, no one can hold me. And I waited so long. And we get a sweet guitar jam to exit the song. If you haven't checked out Mastodon's, I think it's called an LP when it's only 4 songs. But their LP, Blue Walsh, is amazing. And Blue Walsh itself is washed in so much fucking reverb, I call it an ode to reverb. That's what we just listened to. Come on, lady, make a choice. It's not hard to indicate which direction you're turning. Ooh, what is this? I think this is new Mastodon, because the radio station always plays the song by the band you just listened to that you created a station from on YouTube, and I like that. But I don't know if I know the lyrics to this one. I never know the first word of any given line of any given song. All eyes forward, see what's to be done. Goddess desire becoming less and less my own. This will burn bridges, leaving the past behind. There's no choice but to move on. This is the heartbeat, the truth is dead. All that I have sacrificed is leaving me and letting go now. Turns out I do know this one. I don't want to leave you here alone among the wind and weeping. I listen to this song when sometimes I just want to give up on YouTube. Just give up on being circles I've broken. Thus I seem so clear, leaving the past I've buried deep in yesteryear. This will bring back memories that I don't want anymore. I've seen reminders, and now I close the door. This is my song, the end is here. All that I have sacrificed is leaving me and letting go now. I don't want to leave you here alone among the wind and weeping. If I can so sleep beneath the earth and know with the wounds of death, sail the eyes of serpents, soothing powers from the deep blue sea. And there we go. Bow, 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 boom, 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 boom. I usually warm up by singing the bass riff of just anything. Do 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 do. The hole in my throat is not helping me today. All right, dudes and dudettes. Time to hit that grind. I will be back shortly, momentarily even. Take care of yourselves. Until next time, have a good day, or else.